Good evening, one and all. Welcome along. It is episode 60 of season 4, and it's a very novel pairing tonight. Myself and Lauren in the hot seat. How are things, Lauren?
Yeah, not too bad. Very busy this week, so
Yeah.
this will be interesting. I had all intentions to watch a lot of the combine, and I've downloaded it onto the Game Pass. I've just not had the free time to actually watch a hell of a lot of it. So
Yeah. The secret life of an accountant, the sexy part that no one ever tells you about, eh, Lauren?
oh, I know.
So for those of you who are tuning in and wondering what that's about, both myself and Lauren are accountants by trade. So there's a lot of accounting jokes that we have
Yep.
to make with each other. But great to see DJ Dog is already in. Countdown is on. 49 days till dreams come true.
I know. Campbell, it really is coming in fast, thick and fast. I mean,
It's flying. Like, I mean, I don't know where the time is going. And Labarski has joined us on time for once. Labarski, I think he tried to join us right at the end of Tuesday's show, or maybe it was last Tuesday's show I'm thinking of. So great to have you here from the start. And again, have Labarski and Jamie Smith been seen in the same room before?
I know.
So,
It could just be Graham as well. You know, he's always riding himself. So
yeah, Graham's a bit of a dark horse, and all the jokes are aimed at Graham. So who knows? But that Rich Jones fella, I'd
yeah.
watch out for him too. And DJ Dog is delighted to see that Labarski is in the house as well. But Lauren, it's probably been, the season has ended, I think, since we were last on a show together.
Yeah.
So I mean, I haven't really had much of a chance to talk with you about what's happened during the off season. So we were saying just before we came on, we talk about a couple of things. Like, I mean, obviously since last Thursday's show, Tony Pollard has been tagged. So do you want to give us your own thoughts on that?
It's a mixed bag as far as I'm concerned.
Mm.
Obviously, you want him to sign a longer term deal, bring that cap number down, because 10 million, especially at the moment, you got Zeke on the books as well. You're paying best part of something like 27 million to your running back core, and
Yeah.
that's not even including Malik Davis. So that's actually quite considerable. That's what 10-12% of your salary cap.
Yeah.
You're also paying Dak. You're paying Dak the best part of a quarter of your salary cap. It's quite substantial. And at the moment, the Cowboys are 16 million over the cap, 19 if you include what they've got to set aside for the current rookie pool as well. And they've got to get down under that within the next, I think it's Wednesday at 4 o'clock that they've got to get down. Oh, no, actually, it's Tuesday at 4 o'clock. They've got to get down to
Yeah.
salary cap levels, and you want them well below that so that they've got money to spend as free agency as well.
Yeah.
So,
And I like how you didn't go that one step further and go and talk about the fact we'll be adding Bijan Robinson with pick 26.
yeah. Hey, you can but dream, but
Yeah.
I certainly don't think we're precluded from that. I think the Cowboys, the way that their draft strategy has been is to take, if their best player on their board that is available is the best running back when they need a guard, but the next best player they've got is their sixth guard or whatever on the list. They're not going to reach for that sixth guard. They'll
Yeah.
take players at position of value. So,
Yeah.
if the running back position wasn't so devalued now, I mean, you would be seeing Robinson going top 5 at least. I mean, in terms of pure talent, Robinson is certainly top 5.
Yeah. 100% he is. I'm just seeing a couple of comments coming in there. Joe was talking about this on Tuesday. He said he thinks it's a bad mistake to tag a player coming off a major injury. That means no matter what, he gets 10 million. But then, as Libarski said, and this is what we were talking about, you can actually rescind the tag. Like obviously, as you said, you want to get a long-term deal done, but you can rescind the tag if, something like Bijan Robinson happens, so it could happen.
Well, the only way you can't though is if I'm Tony Pollard, I'm going in and I'm signing that sheet now, because as soon as he's signed that sheet, you've then got the clock to this. I think it's the 17th of July this year.
Yeah, it's mid-July, all right.
Renegotiate. But I mean, I think both Dak Prescott, I think Schultz last year, as soon as he was told he was getting the tag, he was in. He signed that piece of paper, so it was guaranteed. Because you have seen players that have said, "Oh well, I'm not playing on the tag. I'm going to wait for it," and then something happens. They go, a team does sign somebody in free agency that actually says, "Right, sorry, we'll rescind it." But by that point in time, you're maybe 2-3 weeks into free agency, and you're then hitting the market, and all the big money has already been paid out. So the player takes a loss there.
Yeah.
I think it's good. It's good that we're bringing him back. If we are making all these changes, you still want to have, especially a West Coast offense. It'll be something that Tony Pollard should, if you're talking West Coast offense, as in the 49ers of the 80s and 90s,
yeah,
Pollard will be brilliant because he'll be that Roger Craig style of player that he can come out of the backfield, take the passes, much more than Zeke is. Zeke in this, I see him more as he'd need to move up to sort of a fullback and be the sort of Tom Rathman idea. Again, primarily staying in for pass blocking, which that's where his value is at the moment. Now, obviously, there's a lot of talk about all the injuries that Zeke's had the last couple of years and what have you. But I think he can still do something, but it'll be interesting to see what his agents found out during the combine week about what the value is for him and all that. But I mean, if I was his agent or if I was Zeke, I'd be saying, it's 4 to 8 million is what he wants to take, and I think the Cowboys are probably closer to 2 million. So I think ultimately there is going to be, I think Zeke's probably played his last, but even that, you're probably going to want to release him as a June 1st cut. And that doesn't have any bearing on the salary cap until June 1st. So that has nothing to do with getting down under the 16 to 19 million that we've got to clear by next week. So
just couple of comments in there. So like obviously I don't normally fill in this slot on a Thursday. So Mike has been called out for work, and our good friend and co-host here on the show, Paul, greetings from Eastern Europe. So Paul is living it up and having a very eventful time in Eastern Europe right now. He's in Turkey, so if anyone is in that area, make sure and give Paul a shout. But you have kind of mentioned about, look, the fact that they have to get under the cap for next Tuesday or Wednesday. And I mean, there are ways around that they can do it, that they can restructure some of the deals. And the thing is, they don't have to negotiate these restructures. But I think what they're trying to do is, with some of the more veteran players, the Zeke Elliott's, the Tyron Smiths, is try and work out a new contract with them. So what we might see is that they might try and push some of the money back and then try and redo the deals. I don't know if that's going to be ideal, though.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is you're kicking the can further down the road, and you're hoping that obviously you get a boost in salary cap because of the new TV revenues which kicked in and all this sort of stuff. But ultimately, at the same time as you're backloading everything, that means you're paying more later on. But at the same time, everybody's salary is going up, and the demands are going up as well. And if you have a good year, then and you and I were talking just before the show as well. I'm beginning to hear things that Zach Martin is probably, this is once his deal's over. He's now looking at, he won't be looking at another deal. Maybe he'll be looking at riding off into sunset. So again, you don't want money sitting there as a dead cap. So if you release some of the guaranteed money, turn it into a signing bonus or whatever, and apportion it over 4 or 5 years, and then bring in some void years as well, which you don't have to get the players say so on that, because obviously they're happy, they get the check straight away and all this sort of stuff. What you want to be doing is an actual extension stroke renegotiating of the whole deal, to try and bring the numbers down.
100%. So I think one of the other things we just mentioned before the show is you're not hearing a lot, like from a lot of other teams, you're hearing kind of noise about who they're going to cut, who they're not bringing back and stuff like that. I don't think we've heard anything much from the Cowboys in terms of who they're not bringing back, who they're going to cut or anything like that. Joe was saying he hopes we sign Schultz. Joe, unfortunately, that is 100% not going to happen. Dalton Schultz has played his last snap in Dallas. It's not happening, unfortunately.
I think the only way he plays back in Dallas is if something happens that there's no biters in the first couple of weeks, and then Dallas can make a deal with him there. But I mean, Schultz is, we were saying that Schultz is better than Gesicki and
Mark Andrews.
Njoku. Well, and Mark Andrews, I would say, is still a better prospect than him ever, in terms of being an all-rounder. But I would say that he's certainly better than Njoku and Gesicki that were also tagged last year. And there will be a market for him. I'm fairly sure of that.
Yeah. And Lebarski is just coming back in just on that. And he's saying this tight end class could bring Schultz's market down. Absolutely. It will. And Paul is saying Schultz is definitely out the door. I know, I have my sources. Yeah, 100%. Look, we've known this was coming for more or less the whole season. We knew this was going to happen. We can't say any more on that. That's just the way it is. And for anyone who didn't get a chance to tune in to Tuesday's show, myself and Mike broke down some of the tight end class, who's going to be available, who might be fit for the Cowboys. We went through all the different rounds. We didn't just pick guys who were going to be there at the top. We went down through mid-round guys, late-round guys, potential unrestricted free agents. So have a tune in. We'll come back around to that. But Lauren, I'm hearing a lot of chatter, and we've seen it in a lot of mock drafts, that the Cowboys are going to take a tight end at 26. I don't think it's going to happen personally, but what are your own thoughts on that?
Sorry, my internet dropped out there.
No worries. So we've seen in some of the mock drafts, Daniel Jeremiah, Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, they've been mocking tight ends to us at pick 26. Do you think it's a possibility?
I think, I mean, again, until you know the way the cards actually fall, anything's possible. And this is why the Cowboys do what they do in free agency, where they patch over all the things so that they don't have to reach for a guy.
Yeah.
Throw in another name. Dane Brugler's just done his post-combine draft as well, and he has us taking Dalton Kincaid as well. So, and you're certainly seeing a lot of the tight ends available if you do your PFF mock drafts and everything like that. That there's always tight ends that tend to be the number one option available at the time Cowboys are picking at 26. I can see it because you certainly need, it's an area of strength at the moment. Even though you're losing Schultz, you've got Peyton Hendershot and Jake Ferguson, who have created the ability to move on from Schultz.
Yeah.
So it is showing that that's an area that they consider to be a strength, and you always the main thing when you're drafting is you should always build strength on strength first of all. If you're trying to build strength where weaknesses are, then that's you reaching for a player. So yeah.
So you've kind of mentioned the name, and we're going to have a look at a few players who kind of impressed during the combine weekend. Before we get into that, was there anyone who stood out for you from the combine? Was there anyone whose numbers made you just stand back and go, wow, I didn't expect that? I know I'll talk about Rich's guy in a minute.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to say, Richie's guy's quite a story as well, and we'll get onto that. But obviously, Nolan Smith running the 4:39.40, and generally, I think he was jumping. Did he not set records as well for sort of the high jump and the broad jump as well? He was right up there with the likes of Byron Jones, obviously.
Yeah.
And that was interesting this week, the news about him being released, and coupled with what he was saying prior to the combine as well, that I think the writing's on the wall. He's probably looking at moving on to whatever is next in his life as well. So it was interesting to see some of the speeds that were being running at in the 40-yard dash. I mean, I think looking at it this year, there's at least something like 15 players that are under 4.4 this year, and there's two in the top 15 all time for combine records as well. But I mean, if we pick up on Turner, Richie's guy, Voorhees as well, the guy that tore his ACL during the on-field drills. That would normally spell the end of his combine, but no, he goes in, bench presses 225 pounds 38 times as well, which just goes to show the strength. And that's with, the bench press, you need everything. You need a firm plant on the floor as well, and everything. Now, if you're doing that with a weakened knee as well, and you're still able to do 38, God knows what he would do if he was 100%.
He might be close to matching Harry Allen's record.
Oh yeah, and there will be some teams that will be willing to invest, much like we did a second rounder in Jalen Smith. There'll maybe be somebody who'll be interested in, second round is you've got rid of your top draft picks and all that. That's maybe where you're willing to start taking flyers on players. So who knows? But obviously you're probably looking at redshirting him this year, because he won't be ready. At best, he could be ready for playoffs. But
you wouldn't risk a rookie in the playoffs, because I mean, as good as Voorhees is, he's a third, fourth round talent at best. It's not like you're going, this is a guy who was a marginal first rounder who was going to improve his draft stock. He's a third, fourth rounder who's blown out his ACL. And, someone might take a flyer in the third or the fourth. I'm liking Lebarski's question here, and I think he's kind of revealed who he really is. So, Jamie Smith, we know this is you now. At 26, you've the pick of any of the tight ends and Bijan Robinson. Who do you all take? You've asked the wrong crowd, I think.
Yeah. Well, again, tell me what we've done in free agency, and with Zeke and Tony Pollard as well. If you get Pollard done to a 4-year, $15 million contract or something like that, where you're paying him $3 million a year, by all means take Bijan. If you've only got him on, and even if you've only got him the 1 year, the 10 million as well, draft him, but it all depends on what you're doing in the build up to it. So
Yeah,
crystal ball time, I'd take Bijan probably.
yeah. Lebarski is kind of saying a lot of the receivers were pretty underwhelming to me. I don't think there's a single first rounder and only a couple of second rounders. Sorry, Joe is just coming in and saying he would take Robinson no matter what. Joe has obviously been watching draft day today. But
Yep.
yeah, like speaking on the receivers, I kind of agree with the take. I still think there'll be 4 or 5 will be taken in the first round, but I'm not overly enamored with this year's wide receiving class.
I think normally the receiving class is guys that are right up there, and then you've got a drop off. I think you've got a couple of guys that are maybe quite good, but everybody else is there or thereabouts. They're all much of a muchness, and there's question marks. There's lots of small guys, but the Cowboys don't like small guys necessarily. T.Y. Hilton might have done something towards resetting that a little bit, and maybe the West Coast offense will work. I thought it was interesting to see what I have seen of the combine. I thought Smith and Jigba had actually impressed quite well. Obviously he was injured a lot last year, and there was question marks about him being back and all this. But I thought at least his performance in the combine drills suggested that he can be successful, and he's coming back, and he's better than he was last year or whatever. So there is that. Similarly, who's it? Addison, I think his 40 time was pretty poor, and that's certainly wasn't what was expected from him as well. So that's maybe question marks, but you'll probably see whenever his pro day is in the next 3 or 4 weeks that he'll, because it's his home ground and all that, and he knows how to get the best time there. You'll probably see something like that. So,
and he'll be clocked at 38 yards regardless.
Yeah. Yep.
But there's been a couple of comments coming in there. So Lebarski has said he's jumped off the wide receiver train. I agree. Joe was saying he thinks I almost said it. I almost did it, Lauren. I never do it. That team might take Robinson. I don't think they'll take him with the 10th pick.
I don't think so, but they've got a couple of picks. So I mean, trade down. Again, they'll look. If they can pick up another first or change that for a later round first, and maybe pick up a second next year or even a first next year as well. They'll do that, and that's pushing it further down. So that again, for them, if it's a blessing that you have 2 first round draft picks, but then you've got a curse 3 years down the line when you're deciding if you're going to activate their 5th year options, because you're talking about effectively 2 franchise tags almost. So that eats into your salary cap as well. So the more you can push that back and sort of delay it, and this is what I was saying again when Mike raised his topic of, would you trade for Kyle Pitts? That you'd be talking Micah Parsons would be hitting, you'd be making the decision on the year 5 option for both Pitts and Micah Parsons the same year as well. And if Pitts has underperformed so far in some respects, he's been injured and what have you, but if he then comes on and excels in this offense, what are you going to do? You're talking about having to pay high for a tight end, and you're talking about having to reset the market on the premier defensive player in the league as well.
Yeah. And I think to be fair to that team, they have an awful lot of needs. Like they are going to be gutted in
Yep.
on their defense. Like they have a lot of starters who are not they're not due back and they're not expected to come back. So they I think they have other needs. Bijan Robinson would be a luxury. Lebarski is obviously trying to play into us now, talking about Marvin Mims has improved his stock, and DJ Dog is backing him up and talking about pedestrian quarterback play for another team we don't dare talk about. Yeah, as long as it stays pedestrian for the next 100 years, I don't care.
Yep. Yep. Definitely.
But look, we said we were going to talk about a couple of guys, and we kind of got a little bit sidetracked. And you'd mentioned his name, so Dalton Kincaid. A lot of mocks are pushing him to the Cowboys. So, senior coming out of Utah, 70 receptions last year, 890 yards, 8 touchdowns. I think you have his combine numbers there, Lauren. If you want to call them out.
Funnily enough, there was what I'm looking at the moment doesn't actually have his combine numbers, so I'll need to Google it quickly, see what he had.
I'm not sure if he did a lot of the combine drills, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think he has actually, because obviously, you know, he'd opted out of the Rose Bowl and seen a couple of the other bowls as well. So, yeah, he's maybe not, but I mean, obviously, the big one for him is he's comped with somebody like Zach Ertz, which is high praise for him. You know, Zach Ertz obviously was the bane of our life quite a lot of the time when you were playing that team. That is for never. You know, and he's still been doing a fair job as well when he was at when he's been at the Cardinals as well. So it's big shoes to fill, but you know, if you can get somebody like that, and again that just goes to show. I mean, you can say that Philadelphia's offense was a sort of hybrid of the West Coast offense as well. So if Zach Ertz was able to excel in that, something like Dalton Kincaid, if he is as good as he is advertised, then you know, and makes the adjustment to the NFL, because again, what you've got to remember is he can be a big guy in college. You know, it's the sort of big fish in the small pond, and then you go to be the small fish in the big pond. As you get the NFL, you know, you're suddenly going up against guys that are all the same stature as you. And the same athletic ability. I mean, it levels you out as well, and you've got to adapt. So if he can adapt, then he's certainly going to be a good player. But
like I think a lot of the so kind of the good points on him are that he does have outstanding ball skills and hands. His body control and toughness are good. And the way he was played in Utah is quite translatable into the NFL. So, I mean, that's like, as you kind of said about Zach Ertz, I think Zach Ertz was Stanford, wasn't he? I think it was Stanford he played, who played pro-style offense. Again, Dalton Schultz came from Stanford pro-style offense. And, like, you know, what the projection for Kincaid is he'll be a good tight end too coming into 2023, and by year 2-3 he will be a starting caliber tight end. The knock on him is he's not great as an inline blocker, and he's a bit short and a bit light. So he's only 240 pounds, so he doesn't have that ideal kind of 18, 19 stone, as we'd say in old money, of a tight end. So he's going to be rocked backwards off the line. So you're going to look for him to be more your receiving tight end, and he, you know, teams will be able to plan for him accordingly.
the other sort of weakness I've got here is that Israelis can do with sharpening up, and teams can actually use their players to actually block him and slow him down as well. So
Yeah,
um, if you're talking with the West Coast offense, it's normally that and Jerry's comments this week as well, that it looks like they're going to be focusing on basically closing down so that Dak is only having to make one or two reads each play. He knows where it
yeah,
goes straight away and get that ball out so that you're not having to, again, if you do move on from Zeke, that you don't have to have another running back in there doing much more than actually just sticking his body in front of him.
hmm,
Um, you know, so you want somebody that can get into position, get that ball out, and move straight away. And
yeah,
if Kincaid is able to be redirected, then that's not a good thing.
yeah,
But as I say, we've got two guys there that are good
mm,
at present in Hendershot and Ferguson.
yeah,
Ferguson, obviously, Travis Kelsey had said in the run up to Super Bowl that he sees a lot of himself in Ferguson as well. So that's high praise as well. So
yeah. It is.
whoever it is we draft at tight end, and I'm sure we will spend a pick on tight end.
Yeah,
We will be able to slowly bring him in, and rely on the guys that we have. So
yeah. And it's probably one possession you wouldn't be surprised to see them pick up an undrafted guy as well, because they
yeah,
have like they've taken Blake Jarwin, they've taken Sean McKeon and Peyton Hendershot over the last 5 6 years. So there's guys they will pick up and who somehow seem to make it onto the team or the roster.
yeah. And I mean, you've got to remember we've got guys like Ian Bunting as well, who's been
Mm,
on the practice squad as
yeah,
well, and I think was activated for a couple of games as well. So,
yeah, he was.
so we do have that. That we do sort of tend to take something out of the later rounds or the undrafted free agents as well. So
Yeah. Um, so one of the next guys we said we would talk about is defensive end out of Auburn, Derek Hall, who I think he had an official visit with the Cowboys during the week. So Derek Hall, as far as I know, he's projected somewhere around the late first, early second round pick. So if you're looking for a defensive end, this might be somewhere you go.
yeah, a 4.55 40,
Mm,
1.59 10-yard split. Um, 33 and a half vertical leap.
mhm.
Fairly pedestrian that one, but obviously generally you don't expect your edges to, or you
Yeah,
don't expect your defensive lineman to get up that high. Broad jump 10-7, that's pretty good. Didn't do any of the short shuttle drills or the 3-cone drill, and didn't do the bench press. So
yeah,
he'll be waiting for his own pro day for that.
yeah.
Um,
So what I'm kind of seeing with Derek Hall, and again, this is this kind of where I've seen some concerns is he's underdeveloped as a pass rusher.
yep,
He's not going to be a guy who is going to bust into the backfield. He's not going to be Micah Parsons. He's not going to be DeMarcus Lawrence. He's not going to get you a whole pile of sacks, um, which is a concern. Spending a first round pick. When you're talking like that, you're talking. Dare I say his name? Taco Charlton.
yes, yep. You're talking somebody that you'll pretty much be reaching for,
Yeah,
and another weakness for him is that he's not that good at his effort levels on run blocking, or sorry, on run defense. isn't that good. So you're not talking about somebody like Demarcus Lawrence, who
Yeah,
obviously sets the edge. He's quite sloppy. He's not willing to set the edge, and play strong to that.
yeah,
Which it obviously means that if teams can get on the outside of him, then they're going to get round and they're going to get the yardage there.
yeah.
Um,
Like it's not all negative on Derek Hall, though. I mean, you are talking about a guy who is explosive. He has burst. He has power. He has arm length. It's not that he's not a good player and couldn't develop, but I think for if you're taking this guy at 26, it is a reach and it is a concern.
it is. I mean, again, this is, if anything, this is probably like last year's Sam Williams, where we were dogging him a lot,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
if anybody's going to get anything out of him, then it's going to be Dan Quinn and Aidan Durdy.
yeah,
And it'll be interesting to see when it comes to his pro day, is Dan Quinn there? Is Aidan Durdy there? Are they taking it to one side? Because that
hmm
was that was obviously, you had Paul up in arms when everybody was making the big thing about Dan Quinn, schooling Sam Williams. Sure enough, we took Sam Williams, and Paul's eating the humble pie. Uh,
hmm
so, you know, the building block is there. They reckon he's going to be a positive. Within a couple of years, he will be an average to above average starter.
yeah,
That's what you're looking at. But there's a lot of projects there, or things that you need to work on. Now he's a good character guy. He's been a team captain for
mm,
his college squad as well. So that's a good thing. That shows that he's got the intelligence as well. So
yeah,
as long as he comes in feeling hungry and he wants to get better and what have you. Um, but again, a lot of these discussions are at least just trying to feel everybody out so that you can make further decisions down the line and just either eliminate people or
hmm
go back and check the tape. So
yeah, 100%. So it's great to see that people are talking to each other in the comments. So Labarski asked us, who do y'all say are the three best fits for the Cowboys at tight end? And DJ Dog came back to him and said Mayor Washington and the Alabama tight end, who's Cameron Latu, that they're all good blockers and they bring something that that tight ends don't have. And DJ Dog is also saying that Luke Musgrave has him spooked. That he likes Kincaid better as a pass catcher.
yeah, I'm kind of interested in Shoemaker, the Michigan
Yeah.
tight end as well. He intrigues me. Um,
See,
the
yeah.
and
Shoemaker, yeah. Go ahead.
again, somebody like Linda Wells should be able to, polish him up a little bit and sit him in. Again, Michigan known running attack as well, so he's genuinely a good blocker as well in the Big Ten. Which obviously all of our guys are presently Big Ten guys as well at the
Mm-hmm.
moment. So,
Yeah.
um, it if you can polish him enough, then the potential's there with him as well,
Yeah.
and you're using a late round pick as well. So, um,
Mm,
I mean, obviously this is where we are at the moment. Could be a state of flux, and he moves up or moves down or whatever. But that's somebody to consider as well in the latter rounds.
yeah. And just to answer Labarski's comment here, which is directed to me, why don't you say that name here, Ryan? I will never say that name, and I will never spell that name, as you can see on my T-shirt.
No, I think Labarski's comment was when you'd mentioned a certain defensive end that we'd reached for a few years back. So
Oh, Taco.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Taco.
Oh no, I'll talk about Taco.
Who did actually win a Super Bowl ring with the Chiefs? But
That is true. That is very true, Lauren. He did. A lot of people have won Super Bowl rings after leaving the Cowboys, strangely.
yeah,
Uh, and you know, it's one thing as we've talked about Zeke leaving the Cowboys. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up winning a Super Bowl ring somewhere.
oh,
And the outpouring of disgust that will come if that happens. Why did we let him go? Why did we let him go? And no one will remember the fact that most people were screaming for him to be, cut last year, never mind this year.
uh-huh.
Yeah. And DJ Dog is just asking, and I think again you asked this on Tuesday night, and I might not have pulled it up. Was it a coincidence that Lunda Wells was the only coach with McCarthy at the combine?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Lunda Wells was actually down taking the tight end drills as well suggests that, that's somewhere that they're looking at
Mm-hmm.
closely. By all accounts, I mean, obviously you've got a lot of the other coaches were back. They're still working on, working out what this 30%, 30 to 35% that Mike
Mm-hmm.
McCarthy said, what
Yeah.
changes they're making. They're still combining and putting the playbook together. And obviously you've got Brian Schottenheimer, you've got Jeff Blasco, who's the running game coordinator as well. So they're needing to sit down and discuss everything. And yeah, you can talk about taking all your coaches to the combine, but realistically, get the playbook sorted out, and then you can send them out to the pro days and get
Yeah.
them picking on your targets there.
Yeah.
The combine really is, a hell of a lot going on. You really want the scouts to be doing their job and doing all the meetings with Jerry Jones and what have you
Mm-hmm.
that or meeting with the team personnel to discuss what they're like off the field, what their intelligence is, can the diagram the schemes and all that.
Yeah.
And you've got to do that within 15 minutes. And if you're bringing coaches in to talk with them as well, it's better to do it within the Dallas day that you have or
Yeah.
the visits.
And this is the thing, like, and it's one thing the Cowboys have always done well. They've used Dallas Day, they've used the Senior Bowl, they've used Shrine Bowl. They work their asses off as a team and as a scouting department across all those kinds of days when they can get access to players. And it shows in their drafting, like it's something I didn't pull up on Tuesday night with Mike, but I think in the last, is it the last 10 years, I know you'll know this one, Lauren. In the last 10 years, the franchise tag has been used 42, 43 times.
Yep.
It's been 40 times it's been used on a first rounder, and 3 times it's been used on by a team who has drafted outside of the first. All 3 times that was Dallas.
Yep. Yep.
You know.
And that just goes to show about how the Cowboys can develop players when they need to. So it also goes to your extent that you always question these players that they always seem to come on when it's their contract year, and this is why we're doing it. In some respects, you want to see them prove it a second year.
Yeah.
But I think when we drafted, going back talking about the franchise tag, when we drafted Pollard, it was because obviously Zeke had his issues off the field, that caused him to miss the 6 games. We then decided that we needed somebody, should anything further happen, then you had Pollard there as well. And Pollard was designed to be a change of pace back, but somebody who could handle the load if Zeke was
Mhm.
out. Um, so we were expecting big things of him when we took him in the 4th round. But obviously he has built on the rookie year, and then year by year he's got better, and then this year he took a step forward, and this was the first year of him being 1,000-yard back.
Yeah. So DJ Dog is just saying to us that the University of Texas Pro Day was today. Bijan is not working out. He's standing on his combine numbers. And I suppose that provides a great segue, because one of the next guys we want to talk about is a fellow University
Yep.
of Texas Longhorn, DeMarvion Overshown.
Yep. Former defensive back, moved up to linebacker.
Yeah.
Plays very similar to sort of Micah Parsons, so it'd be an interesting proposition having him there as well. It was an okay combine for him, I think. Let me just bring up his times. 4.56 40. Again, a 1.59 10-yard split. 10 forward in the broad jump. Didn't do the vertical. Didn't do 3-cone or 20-yard shuttle. 15 reps on the bench press. So that's a little bit worrying in some respects. It's you certainly couldn't be sending him all the time on pass rushing drills.
Yeah, and that kind of feeds into some of the concerns that people have with Marvion Overshown. Like, despite the fact, as you say, he's a former defensive back, he lacks power. He's questionable against the run. He's an inconsistent tackler, and he lacks the mass. He doesn't have the size, really. At 225 pounds, he's not your prototypical linebacker anymore in the NFL. You're looking for a guy 245, 250 plus as a linebacker. So is the potential with DeMarvion that maybe you're drafting him to be your Jaron Curse type tight end killer? He's that third safety in nickel sets.
You could have that. You could also talk about, another person that we're maybe losing out on as well is Donovan Wilson in free agency. Have somebody, again, being that guy in the box and being the hitter. That could be something. It'd be interesting. Again, it'd be interesting to see how he interviews, what they find out about him. One of the best draft story I've heard recently is that when they were looking at way back when they were looking at a guy like Shante Carver, who obviously we took first round, and I think this was Brian Broaddus was saying when they did their, he was working with either Green Bay or Philadelphia at the time, and when they were doing their pre-draft stuff, they found out that Shante Carver liked using chewing tobacco, which obviously has an effect on your gums and everything like that. So he had sore gums, he had bad teeth, and that stopped him eating. And that was one of the things why he was a light defensive end, and he couldn't put the mass on because he couldn't eat. He couldn't build because he wasn't taking in enough protein and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where he failed as a player. He had the potential, but because they couldn't put any beef on him or anything like that, then he was always going to be an average player. And that's why Green Bay didn't take him. We took him, and that was in the days where we were reaching for players. So these pre-draft interviews and everything, it's things that you're trying to find out about him off the field, and what his habits are and all that sort of stuff. So it's interesting what they do ask.
Yeah. So just a couple of points here. Lebarski is saying he'd hate Overshown if we took him where he's projected. So as far as I know, Overshown is projected around about our third round pick. He's around 85 to 100. He's in that range. So I think at that value, and we do need linebackers, I'd take him.
Yep. I mean, going into free agency, I think we're looking at interior defensive line, wide receivers, linebackers, and polish up your offensive line as well, because you don't know what's happening with the guys that you've got as well. Conor McGovern's obviously, has he done enough to earn a contract with us, or is somebody going to, see the ability that the fact that he played a couple of games at centre is that suddenly going to mean that, he's going to be the next Connor Williams as well and get a big deal
Hmm.
with somebody.
Yeah,
So that those are the sort of areas we really need to tighten up as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. And Joe has just chimed in here. Minnesota have just released Zadarius Smith, the outside linebacker. I don't think we'll be able to afford him.
No,
He'd be a nice pickup, but I don't think we'll be able to afford him.
yeah, we were in there a couple of years back, but I don't think the reports were there.
Yeah.
And Adam Thielen's close to getting cut as well, apparently.
Ooh.
That could be interesting. Eric Kendricks as well, already let go.
Yeah.
Um,
Minnesota are clearing out a lot of money and experience guys. I wonder if they're a wide receiver who they need to re-sign.
yeah,
There goes the idea that we might get Justin Jefferson. But a couple of guys now that we're going to look at together it's a couple of cornerbacks. So we're going to talk about Emmanuel Forbes, Keely Ringo, and Devin Witherspoon. So of those three guys, Lauren, I mean, myself and Mike did the cornerbacks last week. And I think we definitely spoke about Keely Ringo and Devin Witherspoon. I think we also spoke about Emmanuel Forbes. Of the three of them, Ringo has the size and profile of Dan Quinn corner.
yeah.
Witherspoon is probably the best of the three of them. And Forbes possibly has the highest ceiling.
Yeah, there's a few questions about them, but they're all, as you say, I mean, they're all there or thereabouts. I mean, Witherspoon could be somebody that in a couple of years' time you're talking about being at least on the Anthony Brown level.
Mm-hmm.
He's small, so could he be another Deron Bland and play in the
Mm-hmm.
nickel? And you can never have enough defensive backs, particularly in the middle as well. So
Yeah.
that'd be an interesting prospect for me.
Yeah.
I think, as you say, Ringo's the 6'2" corner, and that is Dan Quinn's idea.
Yeah.
30, but only 31.25-inch arms as well. Now 10'2" broad jump, but again, he only had a 33.5-inch vertical jump.
Yeah.
That's pretty pedestrian for a lot of, you would normally expect defensive backs to be at least high 30s, early
Yeah.
40s. So being quite low there's interesting with them.
What I like about Keely Ringo, obviously aside from the height, the weight, the speed, the instincts, and his ability to play zone, the comparison that I see for him is Xavier Rhodes. And Xavier Rhodes, as a player in the NFL, has been very good. Maybe just below Pro Bowl level at corner. I'm sure he probably has played Pro Bowls. But, like this team is crying out for a second corner to play opposite Trayvon Diggs.
Yeah.
And, be that guy that we don't have to worry that we can only lock down one side of the field.
You mean we're not trading for Jalen Ramsey and restructuring, though?
I'd prefer to wait till he's cut.
Yes,
because everybody knows it's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, obviously you saw what happened when Anthony Brown went down last year, that, it took us a while to restructure and find somebody. Um, and obviously also losing Jordan Lewis as well. That those were obviously the two big areas of concern after they went down, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of things that were in flux. Um, yeah, Xavier Rhodes certainly played in the Pro Bowl when he was with the Vikings as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and but the last couple of years he's sort of tailed off a bit, and that's why he was on. I think he was the third team. The Cowboys were the third team that he played for, or was on the roster for last year.
Mm. Yeah.
When we picked him up. So,
Yeah.
um,
Like, I suppose to talk quickly about, say, Emmanuel Forbes, 6 interceptions, 6 passes defended. He had returned 3 touchdowns in last year. So he has the ability to be a Trayvon Diggs, but that comes with the concerns that you have with Trayvon as well, is that he will give up big plays. He can be aggressive, which means tackle technique can be suspect at best. And he's also quite slim and lightly built.
yeah, and he's as you say, because he's quite aggressive. He's subject. If you put a double move on him as well, he's always watching the quarterback. So
Yeah.
all you need to do is put a double move on, pump fake or whatever, and he'll go to where he thinks the ball's going, and receivers 10, 15 yards down the field,
Yeah.
which doesn't make him a Dan Quinn type of guy in terms of that. But if
Yeah.
that's something that you can knock out of him, teach him better techniques, then that was the problem with Anthony Brown to begin with as well. Anthony Brown, when he came out as a rookie, yeah, he was a 6th-rounder, but he played well a lot of the time. But Aaron Rodgers absolutely beasted him that year, where he put a double move on him, and unfortunately, the Green Bay's receivers went behind him and
Yeah.
gave up a long touchdown. So
Yeah.
um,
So DJ Dog is just saying, and to be fair, he did say this when we talked cornerbacks. He said the 2 corners at Maryland and at South Carolina are good. They absolutely are. Cam Smith and Deion Banks being the best of the 4. And Lebarsky is saying that apparently Deion Banks has raised concerns in a lot of the interviews that he's done. So again, Deion Banks was the guy I saw a couple of weeks ago who was projected to the Cowboys at 26, and that seems to have died down quite a bit.
yeah. As they're saying, there have been a few concerns raised about him in the interviews, and it can just be, it can be something that he's said, and they've prodded it on it, and he's stuck to his guns or whatever, and not
Yeah.
suggested that he's willing to change or anything. So,
Yeah. So again, we spoke about running back earlier in the show, and a couple of other guys. Like, I mean, this is not just the Bijan Robinson. Yes, he's the shining light at running back, but there are running backs up and down this draft class who will appeal to teams, and one of those guys is from another college I hate talking about, Devin Achane from some farming school in East Texas.
Yeah, you know that our regular Thursday host stuck this guy in because it's his own college, but
he absolutely did.
Yeah, I mean, A-Chain had a good combine as far as I know.
Yeah.
He showed some good cuts as well, particularly on the tackle bag drills. You saw one where, he juked out and then flattened the tackle bag. I don't think he was necessarily meant to touch the tackle bag, but he actually ran through it. So, if that being a player, he could, it'd certainly be interesting to see how he was on the field. He's got the speed. He's good, but he's, you're going back to, you're almost going back in the 80s. I think it was Joe Morris for the
Mm.
Giants, who was 5'8" and
Yeah.
this sort of size. So he's quite small. Um, in this league, again, are you, are you willing to put somebody like him in to block for Dak, who's having to take a 7-step drop or something? Maybe not. That's where his weakness is, but
Yeah.
certainly be a viable threat coming out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Um,
Like Mike was doing the good and the bad. He's been doing that on players everywhere. So, make sure you're following Mike on Twitter at KenFig Cowboy. That's KenFig and Cowboy with a K. So um definitely, like, he is great. He's putting up little clips showing what's a good point, what's a bad point. And as you alluded to, Lauren, the bad play that he showed for Achain was doing something like you said. He got the ball, made a cut, the pocket collapsed to his right hand side, and he kept going to the right hand side. He didn't cut back to the left at all. And it was reason. Now, I mean, look, I couldn't do it. I
no,
couldn't diagnose it at all. But as you say, he did it again in the combine. And that's a concern, is a guy can't diagnose where the hole is that he's supposed to run through.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I suppose, look, we'll move along from that. The less said about that location. He, DJ Dog. Oh my! I thought you were a Longhorns fan.
Well, he is. He is.
Yeah.
He'd been to College Station for one of the rivalry games
Oh,
back when they were in
sorry.
the SWC,
Yeah.
uh,
Sorry.
the the original Big 12 before
Yeah. I was
A&M
I was
decided they
thinking
were
he was
getting beat
talking about a
too much
Tennessee
by us.
game.
Yep.
That other UT.
Yep.
But
In
absolutely,
fact,
he.
you're going back. If you're talking about the bonfire, then you're going back a hell of a long time, because they stopped doing it after the accident as well. So
Yeah.
um, that's almost what must be about 20 years ago now. 20,
Yeah.
25, 26 years ago.
Yeah.
So
So the other running back we said we talk about is, again, another guy who's hanging around at the end of the first, start of the second. Possibly his talent level is higher than that, but we all know teams will go high on quarterbacks, on offensive linemen and cornerbacks, those kinds of positions. So that's why he's sliding. And it's Jahmyr Gibbs, running back out of Alabama.
yeah, and as you say, I mean, I think obviously Bijan is number one. I
Mm,
think he's number two, and then there's a not in there is
huge.
a drop off between them, but
Yeah.
it's certainly it's not inconsiderable that he could actually, depending on what the offense is looking for, it could be him, and they'll
Mhm.
flip flop, and
Yeah.
um, Bijan is your sort of Barry Sanders type guy,
Mm,
and this is maybe your Emmett Smith type guy.
yeah.
They'll be compared against each other for the remainder of their careers.
Yeah.
Um, and it
Um,
just depends how the league is. How long these guys last in the league now. As Stephen Jones says, running backs generally you don't get sign them to a second contract, so you don't
yeah.
necessarily want to waste a first round pick on them.
Yeah. And I suppose the thing with both Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, probably that sets them both apart, is their ability to play receiving out of the backfield. Like Jahmyr Gibbs, his numbers last year, he had 444 yards receiving
Yep.
as well. Do you know, like, if you can have both of those abilities, it makes you that much more of I suppose it is a threat in a way, because you're primarily there to be a runner. It's not like Tony Pollard, who is effectively, he's a scat back.
Yeah.
You know, he's not your bruiser. He's not your every down running back. Whereas Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs are your every down running back who also have a huge backfield ability to come out of that backfield.
Yep, definitely.
So
And they, you know, obviously the big thing with Pollard as well, you saw in I think it was the Houston Texans game where, you know, they had 2 or 3 attempts to punch it in at 1st and goal from the 2-yard line or something like that, and Pollard couldn't punch it in. Both Bijan and you know, they're able to put their head down, fire it through as well if they need it. They've got that strength. So
yeah. DJ Dog just backing up the point here, saying that he's a very good receiving running back, and people don't realise that he's lined up at wide receiver at times. So he's definitely an every down running back. Absolutely. Myself and Lauren can attest to that from 3 seasons of watching him at Texas. That is the ability that he has. So the last guy that we're going to talk about, and again, myself and Mike did talk about this guy on the first Project Prospect show, John Michael Schmitz, who is guard / center coming out of Minnesota.
Yep. And in some people's cases, I think, you know, if you're talking interior offensive line, he's probably certainly, I think he's top 3, if nothing, you know, across the interior offensive line. So that's obviously quite high praise for him as well. Again, wait a minute, I forgot his prospects. So, you know, fairly substantial. I mean, 4, 5, 6, 20-yard shuttle. That's good. That shows he can, you know, he can change direction quite easily, which is obviously what, you know, is a main factor for offensive linemen. You want that mobility. 10-yard split of 185. That's maybe down a little bit. But, everything else, 26 reps on the bench press. That's you know, that's your average. You know, it's what you should be looking for. He's generally, he makes all the calls up front. He's a bright, intelligent guy. You know, he's got quickness for reach blocks and zone blocking, you know, and, you know, if you're moving to a West Coast offense, invariably your blocking scheme is going to be a zone blocking scheme. So again, that could be something he's interested in. You know, but could he be somebody that we're interested in? You know, I think we're seeing Tyler Biadasz. Obviously, he's expanding into the role. I think, you know, again, this West Coast offense could probably factor him better as well. Use his mobility. So, by all means, bring him in. You know, if he's available, you know, is somebody to consider and bring in for competition as well. But does he have position flex? Can he move to another position if he's not available?
Well, see, that's the thing, is that at the Senior Bowl that they played him a lot at guard, and he didn't lose a step. Like I'm just trying to read my notes here. That I think he's exclusively played at center in Minnesota, but they flipped him out to guard at the Senior Bowl. Didn't look out of place at all, and you know, you kind of mentioned it earlier. Tyler Biadasz is going into a contract year. And it's definitely a case, buyer beware. Are we sure we know what's going to happen with Tyler? And if not, do we have a backup plan? Because I think Matt Farniok was brought in 2 seasons ago to be the backup plan. It hasn't worked as yet. He's been injured. We took Alec Lindstrom undrafted last year, had him on the practice squad. So maybe the view is they could bring in Schmitz. If they could get him in the 2nd round, potentially play him a little bit at left guard, and then you kick him inside next year to play at center if needed.
The question there is then as well is, are you keeping Tyron Smith, and what are you doing with Tyler Smith as well? So
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's that again. These are all questions that come the draft. We should have an understanding of what's going in. But if he can play guard, great.
Yeah.
That's an area for doing it. Again, you got question marks that these guys invariably coming out of college, they need a couple of years to get that strength, get the big boy strength as they talk about.
Yeah.
But certainly interesting to see. He's certainly somebody that they reckon again he'll be a very good starter within the next couple of years. So
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think that kind of wraps things up, Lauren. Unless there's anything else you wanna talk about tonight.
no, as I say, I mean it's going to be interesting to see what moves we make in the next couple of days to get down
Yeah.
under the cap. Unfortunately, likely means that we're seeing a few people being released,
Mm.
uh, and there'll be guys that are fan favorites, unfortunately, that go out the door. But this is the time of year that you put sentimentality to one side. Um, and in some respects, it's good. We've seen in the last couple of years that we are willing to move on from people,
Yeah.
rather than show them. There's always been concerns that as Jerry says in his on the bus meetings, that people have said that he's not willing to get rid of players. He's always trying to show them loyalty and all that. But
Yeah.
you got to remember he did move on from DeMarcus Ware. He did move on from Emmett Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and we have to make these tough decisions now.
Yeah.
Especially if you want the free cap money to make a splash this year.
Oh, I'm just looking it over the cap here just to see kind of what they could or might do. I mean, you mentioned fan favorites, and I think Paul might already be resigned to his fan favorite being going out the door in terms of making space, because he only has about 241,000 in money left to get.
Yep.
Neville
No.
Gallimore, so he might be a cut.
Now,
Um,
interesting. They've just announced the 2023 compensatory draft picks.
oh,
So Dallas have got one, two. Their best pick is a fifth rounder.
yeah.
So they've got two fifth rounders, a sixth, and that's it. They have it. So we've got three compensatory picks, two fifth rounders, and the sixth rounder.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much marked as what was going to happen the whole time. With that, just a comment I'm going to pull up here. These are friends of mine, Sky Fever. If you haven't heard their music, give them a shout out. But they want to know, will Jerry be doing the draft from the yacht this year?
No, I don't think so. You'll see him in the war room. They only did it from the yacht back in the good old days of COVID when it was,
Yeah.
kicking off, and obviously that was probably the best place for Jerry at the time. So
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm going to give the boys a shameless plug. So Sky Fever Music, if you're into your old school rock music, give those guys a follow. You will not be disappointed. They are putting out some great content. Lebarski is saying he was hoping for a fourth, and I think this is one of the new things with the compensatory picks. Effectively, everything is getting pushed down a full round now, because the third round picks are going to teams who are using the Rooney Rule properly, and the minority representation is being brought on board. So the likes of African American coaches getting say head coaching roles or offensive and defensive coordinators, teams are picking up those third round compensatory picks and pushes everything down.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I mean, 49ers will have had somebody for the fact that they got D'Amico Ryans going to Houston and things like that. So, you know, all of these minority coaches that have left teams and gone to become either head coaches or offensive coordinators in their own right, they're getting picks for that. So, they're both the Rams and the 49ers got four picks in total. So,
Yeah.
interesting there.
So
Sorry,
I'm not gonna pull up that comment from DJ Dog because it might get us in trouble.
yeah, maybe not.
No, definitely not. But look, as we say, look, it's an hour and 20 minutes nearly that we're going, and as much as Lebarski has tried to prompt us on, prompt us to keep going. I'm just going to pull up this comment. Brian is saying we need to fire McCarthy and hire a new coach to get it. No, I'm not saying that. I go on ahead, Lauren.
I think obviously you get a pick. The main thing is that, you know, if you have a black coach who's a wide receivers coach or something like that, and then you move, they then go off and become an offensive coordinator. You get a pick for developing that talent.
Yeah.
I think also if a team picks up one of these guys, you know, they also get a pick as well. So there is question marks as to why Houston are now on their third black coach in 3 years. So are they doing anything to circumvent that rule slightly and make it play for themselves? But then, having said that, they've just lost a 5th round pick tonight. So and been fined $175,000. So
for spending 26,000.
Yes, on you know,
it's not worth bending the rules, folks.
Yeah.
Lebarski's just saying, and I did see a couple of comments about this, and I'm going to get your take on this, Lord. How long would it take Jalen Carter to drag race to Dallas on draft night? Yeah. Sorry, I thought that comment was going a different way. I thought it was going to talk about how long would it take Jalen Carter to drop. Jalen Carter has been a very naughty boy, and this might end up in a Lyle Collins situation.
It is. I mean, obviously it's difficult because, again, you know, you shouldn't be drag racing, but he wasn't actually involved because he was drag racing the other guy. The other guy lost control, and they obviously hit a lamppost or something like that, which caused them to headman their teammate to die as well. Obviously, you feel bad for that, but you know, it's something you'll learn from, if nothing else. And you know, it's maybe again a side of this new NIL situation that's coming into college that, you know, you see Bijan Robinson was given an agreement with Lamborghini, wasn't it, or something like that? So he was getting to drive in college. He was getting to drive around in the Lamborghini. You know, and it happens to everybody. You see, obviously Sam Williams, obviously the crash that he had at the tail end of last year, he was doing 98 and a 30 or something like that, which is something stupid. You can't control. Unfortunately, you know, you can't control these guys. They are they are always going to try and do things to push the barrier, let off steam, that sort of thing. So
I'm just as you're saying that, Lauren, I'm just trying to manipulate things a little bit here in terms of who we might be sending out the door. I mean, there's a lot of very easy money that they can make, you know. a couple of 100,000 here and there. But in terms of big money, there's not a lot that they can do other than restructure.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I mean, obviously, the big one is restructuring Dak Prescott and, extending him so that you bring his cap down to something manageable where it's 20 million or something for
Yeah,
this year again. Obviously he's 49 million this year, so that would obviously ultimately that would mean you've got 29 million savings. So you suddenly go to 10 million under the cap, and you can do little things with lots of other people, and then
yeah,
you can factor in as well things like move on from Zeke post June 1st as well, or
yeah,
whatever, where you maximize the return that you get as well for that.
yeah.
It doesn't preclude Zeke going out and finding another job almost immediately. Just
No,
it's a case of
it's
things
about,
don't happen in terms of the salary cap. You don't get the benefits until after
yeah,
June 1st. But
yeah. And
there'll be a lot of humming and hawing going on with Stephen, Jerry, and Will McClay this week, I think. So
yeah, I think they might be, as boys said, they might be on the yacht right now, sorting those kinds of things out where they can get the money in. They've structured it where the restructures will have plenty of money to do what we need. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think the greatest example of this was a couple of years ago. That team up north were what, they were 50 million over the cap
yep,
a week before this week 2 or 3 years ago, and got under the cap. So teams can do it. Like, yeah, we're 16 million over the cap right now. That'll be fine by Tuesday.
yeah. Well, I mean, you want to look at the worst teams at the moment. I mean, obviously, Buccaneers at the moment are 50 million over the cap now. Saints as usual. They're 25 million over the cap, and that's
Yeah,
before you factor in the fact that they've already come to a deal with Derek Carr as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
a lot of these, even the team that finished second in the Super Bowl this year, they're only they're just 4 million over under the cap. So,
yeah,
but when you factor in all their draft picks as well, they still need to clear over 1.5 million as well. You know,
yeah. And like
so
they've a lot of guys. Yeah, like wow. And they have to re-sign their quarterback.
yep,
They have to re-sign him now because he's going into his fourth year.
yep,
So wow. And like I'm looking at their dead cap right now and their cap savings, and they don't have much left that they can do because most of their cap savings are actually cap penalties. So they've gotten themselves, oh God, they're dead money. Oh,
yeah,
oh,
54 million.
50. Oh, I feel so good now. And that's what you like. Wow. I thought we
Yep,
were bad at managing our cap at times. Wow.
yep, yep.
Oh, that's just cheered me up, and I think that's a great spot to end it. So, Lauren, I'm going to get you to do the shout outs to
Yeah, sure, no problem.
all things if my mouse would start behaving itself. So we'll give you Cowboys experience.
Right, okay. So obviously, if you're going to a Cowboys game this year, go through Cowboys Experience. And, obviously for the ultimate meet and greets, tailgates, stadium tours, game tickets, tailgate, and much more, meet guys like Sam Williams, Micah Parsons, Drew Pearson, Zach Martin, Jay Novacek's there as well.
Mm,
You see James Wright there, if I'm right, the fan of the year for the Cowboys
yeah,
nominee. Obviously, if you're going across with them, use the discount code UK Cowboys, and you'll get a nice wee goodie bag or something as well with lots of free stuff.
and
And
fun.
and obviously, we're going to be going there this year anyway. But first of all, check out our wall of. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, you jumped
So
ahead on me.
I did, yeah. So obviously it's Thanksgiving that we're all booking up for now. So get in contact with Cowboys Experience now, book your place on that, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. Certainly, the majority of the podcast team are going out there. I think there's only one no show from our squad, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So looking forward to that already.
yeah. And then the last one.
Yep. So also check out our Ring of Honor here. All the guys from the content creators. So you got the Cowboys podcast, Talking Cowboys, Hanging with the Boys, the Break, Draft Show, Milk Shots, all that. But also you got Pick Six Sports, Skywalker Steel, KT's Fun House, Law Nation, it's Jeff Reinbold show now, Big Game James, Jeff Kavanagh. You know, listen to these guys. A lot of these guys are able to say things that the Cowboys podcast can't.
Yeah,
At the moment, the Cowboys can't talk about it. The Cowboys podcast can't talk about who you might want to bring in until next week. It's not a problem for blogging the boys and all that. They can discuss potential targets.
Lebarski is telling us he'll be back in studio on Tuesday. Well, make sure you're on time this time, Lebarski, okay? None of this tuning in at 10 o'clock here in the UK and Ireland. But with that, Lauren, I think we'll fade to black, and I'll put on the nice fade out music. And where's that even gone? I'm not even going to try now. So I'm not. So I'm just going to say it's a good night from me,
and it's a good night from me. Enjoy your weekend, guys, and we'll see what happens in the next couple of days.